Hello, Astro friends. It's Melanie here on the 5th of June 2023 with the Astro News via video for the coming week, June 6th to June 12th. So, how are you doing after this intense and really fired up full moon? The full moon weekend, we just had the full moon in Sagittarius, Gemini, in T square with Saturn in Pisces. So many things, so many themes swirling around, maybe some simultaneously that you've been dealing with from all these different angles, maybe, hopefully, a lot about the heart, finding your truth in your heart, speaking from your heart, and the heart is beyond all these separations, of course, right? And all the doubts and questions, because the truth just is, right? So when you're in your truth, you're in your freedom, you're in your joy, you're in your spaciousness. All of that is Sagittarius. And there's wisdom there, natural heart wisdom. Hopefully you could access that too, and at the same time maybe regulate somewhat from the Saturn in Pisces side. All these different streams of energies coming your way. I mean, you can't regulate the energy, but you can regulate yourself. And what you let in, what do you let go through you rather than letting it stick and contaminating your energy field. So lots of these themes, and then always from a Gemini side, so much to learn, so much to listen to as well, and so much to see and to newly understand. Maybe also lots of breakthroughs, mental breakthrough, not breakdown, but breakthroughs in your thinking, paradigm shifts, or also communication breakthroughs, talking to somebody, talking in a way or about a certain subject to somebody that seemed to be sort of delicate, sticky, and not really easy to access. But with Uranus, with Mercury Uranus yesterday on Sunday, there was really liberation. There was a cutting of old habitual ways and leaving those behind, ways of being too sort of being stuck in a comfort trap, in a place of convenience, in a place of, well, whatever, I do that in mañana, basically. I deal with that tomorrow. No, actually, this is an energy to actually access the freedom that comes from speaking out and being spontaneous and showing up in that regard. Showing up for the Earth, for example, Uranus, Mars in Taurus, showing up for Mother Earth and all her beings. And while there's so much disruption, there's so much disconnect happening. I was yesterday at a Protect the Sacred walk with indigenous elders and lots of allies of the old growth forest protection that is so important here in BC. Last old growth forest is being logged, and this has to be put to a halt because it's so destructive for the whole environment, for the ecosystem, for all the beings, and then for us. We are sawing the branch of us humans, literally sawing off that branch that we sit on as well. So it's in a way self-destructive, suicidal, right? So anyway, there was a beautiful walk through the city. There was a long event yesterday, 4 hours, with teachings, with smudging, with sharing, with heading out through the city, and also showing up on stage. I wasn't, but the elders were on a folk fest stage, basically coming in and taking center stage. Also, apropos Venus in Leo. So Venus has been in Leo since yesterday, and here's my segue. Will be until October 8th, for really long. So do you feel that Venusian shift into more loving self-expression, more confidence, more joy, more strength, more colorful life, and also being what does self-loving mean, right? How can you treat yourself with a place of being special while also at the same time you are special because you made it to come to planet Earth. This is a privilege, right? Well, at the same time, we are all here and we are all in this together, is what Aquarius would say. Venus has in her shift into Leo just literally today opposed Pluto in Aquarius, in Pluto retro in early Aquarius. So this juxtaposition between um, and also the invitation to build a bridge between self and community and humanity, right? So you want to be your truest self, express who you are in a loving way, in a heartful way, be seen, be loved, be generous, be alive, and at the same time, we are all contributing to this evolution of humanity on planet Earth. How do we do this? How can we be an expression of the change? Which is also Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto retro now also says it all starts from within, and it has to do with reclaiming power and not giving power away to Aquarian wise the system, especially technological, technocratic system, and organizations that are not really seeing you as an individual, right? With her or his um, personal sovereignty and self-expression, which is the Leo side. So there's this bridge, right? And it could have shown up in many ways in your life, and it continues this week. The energy is still there, and could also show up in relationships, because any opposition, in this case Venus and Pluto, is shows up typically in relationships. So I just want to show you the chart of the full moon again that features all of that. So here is the sun and the moon. So here's the moon, right, in Sagittarius, the sun on the other side. Okay, I have to always go backwards when I point from behind. And then you also have Venus freshly, Venus freshly entering Leo, and Pluto here in Aquarius, right? And all this tension. So you have a fixed t-square, and you have a mutable t-square here, and you have a fixed t-square as well. So there's been lots of tension on the weekend, which is now rolling out and grounding under the Capricorn moon these days. So today and tomorrow the moon is in Capricorn and goes to Aquarius on Wednesday, 1:42 a.m. So basically the whole day, Wednesday, Thursday, is has the moon in Aquarius signature. But before we go to Capricorn moon, so we need this grounding energy, as there's so much fiery energy also happening via Venus now as well in Leo, joining Mars in Leo, joining Lilith in Leo. And the three are now especially strong throughout the month of June, as long as all three are in Leo, and mid-July, so July 11th is when Mars leaves. July 10th is when Mars leaves Leo and goes into Virgo. So from now till July 10th is a very passionate and colorful and yeah, it's a time of joy, of being alive, of dancing, of expressing, of being in your full bloom, so to say, right? And being in your creative wildness as well with with Lilith in Leo, right? So wild, in other words, also could mean literally feeling a call of the wild and being more in nature and being also in your true nature, in the nature that we intrinsically are, that is underneath all the conditioning and underneath all the confinements, domestication, so to say, right? So rediscovering our unconditioned nature that is loving, Leo, right? And is very warm, warm-hearted, and full of joy. So yeah, wonderful time for all of that. And what else is going on specifically this week? As I said, yes, the moon moves, it's now in Capricorn, which is very grounding, which can also be a beautiful connection with the elders and ancestors. So maybe you want to intentionally connect with them in spirit or in person. If you have elders and ancestors around, wonderful. If they have passed on, of course, there's always a possibility to connect with them as well. I find that certainly to be true. And then we have the moon in Aquarius for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And that's also when the moon will, for the last time, go into contact with Pluto on Wednesday, before Pluto retrograde goes out of Aquarius back into Capricorn. So we get to that in a second. So yeah, so Wednesday can be from the moon's perspective. So in other words, our moods, feelings, needs, and all that, the general emotional atmosphere. Be quite also some tension going on, since the moon goes into conjunction with Pluto, opposite Leo, opposite Venus and Mars in Leo, and into square. So basically a T-square with Jupiter, North Node in Taurus, Grand Cross, in fact, also in square with the South Node in Scorpio. So there's a lot going on there that wants to express itself in community, with friends, in groups, in gatherings. I have a few of those on that day. And how can we all, from the Aquarius perspective, be a part of something that we share and intentionally, consciously share this humanity and share maybe a vision for the future that we might want to collaborate on, or also be, again, be the change that humanity wants to represent. And not being Jupiter in Taurus can be beautifully enjoyable and comfortable, but we can also be trapped in a consumer, be stuck in a consumer trap and comfort trap and not engage, basically, right? That is a danger of Jupiter in Taurus. So much Taurus, so much sedentary energy, sitting and consuming. And then on the other hand, it's also the invitation to see the abundance of nature. Nature is not an expression of scarcity. Even in winter, there's always so much going on under the surface, and preparing the nature and the earth are by intrinsically abundant. So to tap into that mode and come together with people from that spirit would be beautiful. And at the same time, joy, celebration, Leo, right? And not being too much stuck or sucked into black holes and rabbit holes that pull us in and are really dark and destructive. That would be the South Node in Scorpio. So yeah, as I said, Wednesday, also Thursday can be still quite some tension, because on Thursday the moon in Aquarius goes into square with Uranus and Mercury. So there is the question about engaging in conversation, but maybe a new and um, a new innovative or experimental approach, a new approach to communicating to somebody, where the energy could have been also stuck and held back, or some resistance on your or their end. And being in communication being on the same level, basically. Also Aquarius past Capricorn. Capricorn can be more like a pyramid, a subordination, right? Which can be a totally natural thing in terms of honoring the elders and people with experience, and also with certain, mm, achievements, right? So that can be totally legit. But with Aquarius, it's about equality. And speaking of Aquarius, we're also now in the Aquarius part of Gemini, in the central part of Gemini, the central 10 degrees, which are the equivalent date-wise of June 1st to 10th. And that has an Aquarius undertone. So there is, since the weekend already, right? Since the full moon. So I definitely noticed that a lot on the weekend. So in other words, there's lots of communication going on. There's lots of needs for alchemizing polarities and opposition and dichotomies and polarities and or is it polarities and division, right? That can be a Gemini job, right? How do you bring that together, these divergent energies, rather than getting sort of spun around and scattered, and finding a way of letting these oh so contrasting sides, just like yin and yang and so on, speak to each other and come into contact. And you can do that game, so to say, also with different sides, different parts of your personality. So this is the Gemini part, and the Aquarius part of this week that still goes on till the 10th is also again a community, same level. Speaking to friends would be a wonderful way of expressing that, right? And the freedom that comes from that. Now, moon-wise, the moon will then go into Pisces on the 9th, on Friday, and Saturday until Sunday morning be in Pisces. So Pisces being very multidimensional, very open, connected, and tapping into different worlds, which can be also in a way like danger of that is losing yourself in all this. The invitation is to let go of your basically your limited and limiting personal identity, and be really in a bigger energy field, experience yourself energetically rather than as a separate entity. And moon in Pisces will connect with Saturn first on Friday, and then with Neptune on early Sunday morning at the end of Pisces. So that's again brings out these two planets currently in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, since March 7th this year until Valentine's 2026. And Neptune also still in Pisces since 2012 until 2026 as well. So that will be from Saturn, Neptune, a grand finale of Pisces in 2026. Wow. So as they both together leave Pisces and go into Aries, 2025 and 2026, it's this phase. And what's the moon got to do? So the moon brings that out. The moon brings out the connection with Saturn on Friday, and that can have to do also with the need to be boundaried, right? So it can have to do literally with checking in on your addictions, right? So Pisces can be also of all the signs in the zodiac, wherever Pisces is in your chart, not necessarily a Piscean sun people per se, but it is where losing oneself in and at the same time having this longing to connect, right? So the interface of that is often expressed in addictions, right? So, and Saturn would, and addiction come in so many ways, as we know, right? Substance-wise, behavior-wise, and so on. And checking in on addictions, checking in on where you are basically dependent, right? So Pisces also codependencies, and where this dependency can you can outgrow that, and you can also overcome this. What does it take, right? Does it take a discipline? Does it take a clear intent, right, with Saturn, and commitment, and being consistent with that? Maybe. Saying no is a specialty of Saturn, and having a good reason why, knowing what of this doesn't work for you, and then being super clear and putting a foot down, and not getting swayed, and noticing your own excuses, noticing your own tendencies to say, well, not now, and this is so whatever, right? All the wiggling. And so Saturn in Pisces definitely has this feature. And I'm speaking in terms of coffee here, because I decided to not have coffee at this point anymore. I might have a cup here and there with friends in a cafe or whatever, but I found coffee is really, the caffeine is definitely not so beneficial, and there's lots of bad side effects. I mean, we know it, but it takes to, just like with Saturn, right, to not go with the flow in this case, right? Everybody's having coffee, right? But Saturn says, no, I'm saying no to this, and I'm consistent, right? So I can recommend that, and wherever that's relevant for you. Now, then Saturn goes, the moon then goes also in connection with Neptune on Sunday, the 11th, before it goes void of course, and into Aries. Just checking, yeah. So and in sextile with Pluto then too. Anyway, so that Sunday will be so exceptional in many ways. What's happening on Sunday, June 11th? It is definitely the most interesting day of the month, besides, of course, the full moon, new moon, but so much is happening on this one day. Even though the week building up to it, not so much. So the Moon-Neptune connection, for starters, right, is also a opportunity to let go, right? So can you let go, really truly let go, and bless what is not you, is not yours anymore, right? And how can you release and surrender, and also surrender to the divine, surrender to our connectedness as one to take care of all of this, right? And also, of course, the night when the moon meets Neptune, when the moon meets Neptune at night, I should say, which happens Saturday, Sunday, is a beautiful time to tap into not just a good sleep, but also into many dimensions, whether consciously or unconsciously, and being one with what is. Then yes, the moon will enter Aries, starting a new lunar cycle on Sunday as well. And in this case, it will be not even 1 minute void of course. Usually the moon is void of course, kind of averages a few hours. And it can be up to like 20 hours I've seen. But I don't think I remember ever having seen the moon in like 20 years of doing this, having seen the moon going void of course for less than a minute. So it is leaving the last aspect is a sextile with Pluto at 6:20 a.m. and also at 6:20 a.m. it enters Aries. And that itself is quite a shift. It's also a sudden shift. It's not so much a limbo state, right? No void limbo state, but it's quite a shift from Pisces to Aries. Boom, just like that. And also there's no planet retrograde, no Mercury retrograde at this point. And often the combination of Mercury retro and void of course moon can be tricky, right? So that should make it much easier this week in terms of mentally, emotionally being kind of more, everything is more on board and is not going sort of astray, right? As can happen. And then things are sort of left in the open, or you're like ships crossing in the night, you don't really meet with another and need to reconnect and redo it and have this conversation more clearly. Then so that moon piece, a whole new cycle starts, more energy, more vitality, more vigor coming in with Aries on Sunday, but so much more. So what else is going on the 11th? Pluto going retro currently, right, until October 10th, that started on May 1st, is now from early Aquarius, where it's been dancing on this Aquarius cusp side, it will re-enter Capricorn on the 11th and will be there in retro course and then again in forward course from October 10th on, but altogether until January 20th, 2024, when it enters Aquarius for the second time. But again, not fully. That will be next year, will be for longer in Aquarius until September 3rd, and then briefly going back into Capricorn, and then fully going into Aquarius on November 17th, I believe. 18th, right? Around these days, 2024. So now we're in this transition phase of Pluto shifting from Capricorn to Aquarius. We can also feel that sort of an echo of that this week as the moon is in Capricorn now and then goes into Aquarius, right? So what's with that? So Capricorn has a lot to do with the past, with history, with time, and also with the old world. And Aquarius has to do with modernity, with future, with also post old structures and hierarchies, more the circle, the community, and the sharing, right? So that is not just all good. Pluto actually also brings out the shadow on this juncture, right? And it shows what needs change, right? Because any change can be easily hijacked by powerful interests, which is Pluto again too, right? So power likes to take hold of change, while true change, organic change is the power, right? Is the ongoing evolution of life. So not giving power away is a big deal with Pluto retro, and not giving power away and reclaiming power, processing things that help you to be back in your power, and that could have to do still at this point from the Aquarius side with the power of the technological, technocratic perspective and dystopia on the horizon. and then with Capricorn, still the signatures of the old empire, as I call it, right? So you probably know what I'm talking about. It has so many expressions, but there could be some unfinished, some still open business around old empire, so to say, right? And our engagement, our involvement with it, right? As Pluto will go back into Capricorn, which have probably its own important meaning. And then what's also going on June 11th, Sunday, is yes, Venus goes into square with Jupiter also. So there can be more layer and an extra narrative around the well, seeing from a Pluto perspective, some kind of hedonistic tendency, right? Especially on the weekend. So where it's like, yay, all these celebrations are happening, and wow, let me consume it all, right? So that can be like, whoa, you're just out and trying to be everywhere at once and enjoy to the fullest, and just don't overdo it, and know there is natural abundance. There's always more to come, and you are loved, and love is always with us. So much love. The summer with Venus in Leo, and we need to also retrieve our natural healthy self-love, as Venus will go retrograde end of July, but more about that soon, or whenever it comes up here. So Venus, Jupiter, but also what's going on Sunday the 11th is Mercury goes finally out of Taurus, where it's been since, when was that? April or something. I can't believe it. Yes, early April, April 3rd or so, because Mercury went retrograde in Taurus, and so the whole phase of Mercury retrograde was in Taurus, which made this Mercury in Taurus phase super long. Um, and then Mercury will finally leave Taurus and go into Gemini, which is also rules, and for only a really short time. In this case, like just 15 days until the 26th of June. So that's quite a contrast. And so this is a very light energy, a very swift energy, a very curious and inquisitive energy. And as Mercury shifts from Taurus to Gemini, I call this cusp also the voice point. So it's about giving voice to what matters to you, what you value, Taurus, and also maybe giving a voice to those beings in nature who don't have a voice, and voicing also, yeah, what's important to you. And then better time in general for communication. Mercury is then fully out of that post-retro shadow and all the rest of it, and will be in Gemini. So yeah. And then on Monday, the 12th, Moon in Aries, maybe relief from an integration of the weekend, but with Aries is still a dynamic energy. It's not really boring. So yeah, that's it. Let me just double check here on my list whether I have forgotten anything to mention. And no, I guess that's it. So we're good, and I take my leave here. Wish you a beautiful week, and see you again when we do in person, or maybe you see me here on the channel again. Of course, as always, I post below links to blog articles, or the blog itself, where you find those articles for all these features that I have already written, like Venus into Leo, or I'm about to write, like Pluto back into Capricorn, Mercury into Gemini, and such, right? And you're also welcome to check out my Facebook page, or come to my newsletter if you want the whole all the comings and goings from new moon to full moon, all this astro weather and the medicine that goes with it, as I call it, from new moon to full moon and from full moon to new moon comes every 2 weeks into your email inbox so you don't miss anything on social media. Just send me an email. My email address is below. You're most welcome, and I subscribe you and welcome you. And yeah, have a wonderful week and take good care. Bye and enjoy Venus in Leo.